Hey guys, another conversation here with a great friend actually of mine, Dr. Dan Sullivan. And Dr. Dan has been a colleague of mine for a number of years. He travels all over the world, speaks all over the world in some of the biggest stages on the planet. But today we're talking about Ozempic in this new fad. I don't even think it's a fad anymore. It's literally taking the world by storm. But let's begin to uncover the pros, the cons, the side effects. Doc, thank you for joining me today, buddy.
It's an honor to be here, Dr. Pete. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm not sure exactly where people are at listening to this, but I think I think we're in the same space where, there's such a hope in their body, and we want to put that hope back into their body. The greatest doctor's inside. So as we talk about this, our heartbeat is to make sure they understand that, there is a healer that God put inside them, and God is the healer, but there's an intelligence inside. And one of the reasons why we get fired up about these messages is because sometimes the powers that be want to take that away from them. And I've always, aligned with your message, and I think you have with mine, which is there's a challenge out there right now, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And obviously we'll get into that with Ozempic, but I'm very honored to be here, brother, with you and share with this message.
And Doc, it's so true. I think there's so many people that we've just lost hope, or maybe we're just ignorant. And I think no matter where you're watching this from today, no matter what your situation you might find yourself in, I just want you to know there is hope for you. And that's what we're going to talk about, that the body's fearfully, wonderfully made. It's bought with a price. God didn't create junk. He created the body in a certain way. And if we apply the wisdom from God into how we steward the body, it's amazing. And one of the things that we continue to teach people with is the things I steward over are the things I honor. And when I give honor to something, when I steward over something, I get to partake in the fruit of it. I get to partake in the rewards of it, so to speak. But Doc, let's talk about Ozempic, Wegovy, and all these other medications right now that are not even weight loss medications. To be honest with you, they're diabetes medications. But give me a breakdown of kind of just give our viewers a synopsis of what's going on right now.
Yeah, here's the thing. We're living through, as we all know, kind of crazy times. And one of the things that this Ozempic medication has shined light on is the fact that there's a lot of people that need to deal with this problem, obesity, overweight, blood glucose levels that are kind of out of control. And so, yeah, so it's just it's revealing the nature of the problem. And we're not going to, that's real. One of the things, even as you just mentioned, when I study, I like to think context here, because if context is you're going to hear about this drug, you're going to continue to hear about people, maybe you have friends and relatives and people in your influence. And what I want you to know is that, it's interesting, Pete, because we think about this. God has always used people. He used Moses, he used Abraham, like the lineage, David. So this isn't like any other time. He's used people. And I think the challenge, though, is that we've got to be very aware of where we're getting our information, what people we're getting our information from, and where they're actually getting their information from. So it may sound like you and I are having this conversation, like, yeah, but Dr. Dan, I mean, like, they've got these big centers over here and they're big technology, and they've kind of figured some things out over there. And we just want to make sure, like, first off, that a lot of that was bought and paid, and there's just biases in how we look at the research. So all that to say, when we break down Ozempic, this drug, as you said, it's a diabetes drug. The challenges that you won't hear about, it's the greatest revenue generating drug right now in the history of mankind. That's what we know. That one of the things that with obesity in the last 50 years, it's gone from 13% to 43% in the US. Now, some doctors come out and say that it's a genetic problem. We're seeing Weight Watchers and Oprah say that it's a genetic problem. So therefore, genetically, you can't control it. But when you study epidemiology, there's no way you could go from 13% to 43% of the population having this challenge and call it genetics. The genetics don't change that quickly. So we already have a problem with that. But here's the other. If you control the narrative and say it's not your fault, you can't do anything about this, then the only thing you could do was this drug. And that's where, again, you and I come in and say, whoa, 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 you can control it. Your body is designed to heal. We acknowledge there's this problem, but just taking this shot for the rest of your life, which is exactly what they're saying, take this shot, very expensive, once a week for the rest of your life. What this drug does, it doesn't, by the way, and I know I'm going to go off on this and I'll kind of give it back to you here for a minute, but it doesn't change. The one thing it does is it just changes your hunger. So there's a reason why you inject it into your digestion or digestive area, is because it changes the hormones to make you not hungry. The crazy and cool part is there's mechanisms to do that without the drug.
Yeah.
So that's the first and foremost.
And please know this, Doc, I want you to go on tangents. It's not even a tangent. I just want you to take liberty, because we just want to empower you, the listener, the viewer, really just get you on the road to health. Life is a gift. And if we don't steward it well, we lose it. And there's many people that are just not fulfilling the call of God in their life because they've not stewarded over their health right. And so, like Mark Wahlberg just said, he says, hey, to each is their own, but there is a better way. There is a better alternative. And so just making people aware that there is an alternative, but honestly, it appeals to insecurities. Like, who doesn't want to lose? I mean, I'm 48. Who doesn't want to lose some pounds around my belly? Like, you know, it's a quick fix, and we like quick fixes. I mean, that's why McDonald's is so successful in what they do. It's cheap, it's quick, and you don't really have to do much work. And people that have struggled losing weight for a long time, probably because they haven't approached it right, but even if they have, are finding just an incredible quick fix here, but it comes with side effects. And I think that's the biggest thing we have to understand. And let's go back to the gene code discussion real quick. You know, I'm the type that likes to ask questions. I didn't know a lot about nutrition, to be honest with you, my first number of years in practice. In fact, I used to make fun of people. I gave pizza to all the people that came in and listened to me explain what was going on with their health, and not knowing that pizza wasn't the perfect food. So I've come a long way, and I didn't begin to progress in my health journey until the Lord said, son, you need to humble yourself and become teachable, or you will not yourself fulfill the call of God in your life. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. I began to ask the question, though, okay, well, what's our DNA for? What's our gene code for? Let me tell you this. Our gene code determines the best environment for us to live in. So the DNA of a fish, there's an environment suited for the DNA of a fish. Obviously, that's clean and pure water. Watch this. We as humans have a certain DNA and a gene code. And when that DNA gene code, there's a specific unique environment that's best suited for that DNA and our DNA and gene code. And when that environment is pure and sufficient, it leads to an expression of health. But when that environment is toxic and deficient, it actually is, that's the stress response. And so that actually puts the body into a fight or flight response. When I live in an environment that's not suited for my DNA expresses itself contrary, and it leads to sickness and disease. It's a form of stress on the body that takes my body away from homeostasis. And if it's left there too long, it leaves it vulnerable. Now, what I tell patients all the time is, we live in a stressful world. The secret's not avoiding bad things. It's not avoiding germs. It's being resilient in the face of it. Okay? Because we have an environment that's not well suited for any of us, to be honest with you. And no matter what I do to make my environment better, we're still going to face things. So the secret's not avoiding all those bad things. It's being resilient in the face of those things. So my body's ability to adapt to those things and then properly recover. Adapt and properly recover. But if I continue to put my body in the DNA that I was created with into an environment that's toxic and deficient, eventually we know it reaches that threshold called allostatic load. It's that medical term that means our body got stuck in a stress response. It's at that point that our body becomes vulnerable. It's that point where essential activities for survival go into overdrive, non-essential activities, not necessary for survival, downregulate. What is one of those things that downregulates? Digestion. What's another thing that goes up? Blood sugar. And so we live in a world where we have more stress than ever before in human history. And a lot of the issues with metabolism, appetite, blood sugar is actually a stress response that the body's in a constant survival mechanism. And it's a detrimental area and environment for the DNA that we have. But when that DNA, when it's an environment that's pure and sufficient, right? It expresses itself very effectively in health. I believe we're fearfully, wonderfully made. God did not create junk. He created our bodies to work. And it's imperative that we have the proper perspective as well. So we have the right set of lenses when we actually look at this thing called Ozempic and what's going on there, but not just with Ozempic, not just with weight loss, not just with diabetes, like every aspect of health. We were created in the image and likeness of God. We were created to be healthy, and there's a way that we can approach health and actually get moving in the right direction no matter what you're facing.
Yeah, that's so good, buddy. Dave Ramsey often says, I don't agree with everything he says. I agree with a lot of it, but he says, live like no one now so you can live like no one later.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes it could be overwhelming. It's like, well, how do I, Dr. Pete, how do I even live? Like, can I be in the world, but not of the world, right? God made the simple things to confound the wise. I think there's some key principles here that basically says, if you find Mark Twain, if you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. So we see these things that say, okay, I'm so different than my other people that I interact with. That would be a good indicator you're probably on the right path, because, and here's the challenge, and it's not our fault, right? John 10:10, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So we know that these big food companies, by the way, they know how to find the bliss point. What that is literally the most climactic experience that a human can get by tasting food. Almost like an orgasm. It's the bliss point as close as you can to that. So they were able to, you mentioned, fast food. The French fry is as close to the best bliss point you could possibly get. It's the combination of fat and salt. And so a lot of these behaviors, these tastes that we've been acquired to, it's because somebody has a vested interest in us and addicting us to that. And some people, sometimes we sound like conspiracy theorists, like you guys are crazy, but until you're not, you just go down that path and that's what you see. So there's a reason why we're in this place. I mean, 77% of our current 18 to 24-year-olds can't qualify for military action. One condition, diabetes and prediabetes, and everything that it does and leads to, we spend more money on that one condition than the entire budget for our defense. So you start to piece this thing together and you're like, this is not only just a big deal individually, globally in the fabric of society. And so when somebody introduces this drug Ozempic, which when you look at it, what's the side effects? You have a 900%. So this is a study done by Journal of American Medical Association, 2023. They took 4,000 people and they studied them and they followed them. And what they found out is that when they had this drug, there was a 900% increase in pancreatitis. There was a 422% increase in bowel obstruction. And there was a 367% increase in gastroparesis, which is paralysis of the stomach. 50% of people, half of them, if you know anybody that's used this, half of the people actually immediately and consistently get diarrhea and vomiting. And so you start to, but like we know, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. You can't put a foreign material and manipulate the body into thinking or doing something without repercussions. And we're finding out the adaptation, as you speak about so well, Dr. Pete, the adaptation to this drug is that the bowel wall gets thicker. When the bowel wall gets thicker, there's obstructions, there's inflammation. Yes, you may be losing weight. Then another study came out and showed that 40% of the weight loss, and hear me on this one, this is where it gets really crazy, because 40% of the weight loss comes from losing muscle. And if you know anything about muscle, see, God put muscle in our bodies for us to have strength, but it's not just that. When you study metabolism, the reason why our metabolism is what it is because of muscle function and structure. The more muscle you have, the higher the metabolism, the more balanced your metabolism. And if you're a lot like me, like I'm a pretty simpleton, I think Dr. Pete, you and I are pretty aligned with this. Like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but here's what I will say, is that metabolism, if you ever have a hard time, what does that even mean? It's the ability for your body to burn what you put into it and to turn that into energy, but then also utilize it for cellular growth and activity. And so you want a higher metabolic rate. You want that to be high. The more muscle you have, the better your metabolism. So if this drug, which we know it does, reduces weight, and 40% of the weight is from muscle loss, then not only is your strength going down, your metabolism is immediately going down. And then here's the last thing on this topic is that the study shows that 65% of people will gain the weight right back after they get off it. But here's why it's bad, because that the weight they gain, they're worse off than before because they lost muscle. And then when they gain all their weight back, they've actually gained back more fat percentage than muscle. So any way you dice this up, it really becomes this problematic. So the idea that it's just blanketly recommended. I had a nurse literally today, she emailed me and she said she wanted some information on this because she heard me talk recently, and she said, I am around nurses and doctors, and she goes, right now, they are handing this prescription out like candy. And that's why this problem is not just, it's only going to grow. And so those are the challenges, again, that we're seeing with the side effects of this drug.
A few things. I think we live in a world too that it's so easy to find our identity in the wrong things. It's so easy to find identity in just the circumstances of life, and our story becomes what we go through in life rather than what he went through, what Jesus Christ went through on our behalf. I think so often we just question our worth and value. And if we can do anything to just satisfy that longing in our heart and just make ourselves look, everyone has these insecurities, and I'm not against it all, like stewarding the temple of God, but it has to be from the right perspective. Like, what is it for? What's my health for? It's to be a blessing. It's to finish well. It's to run and not grow weary, walk and not faint. I didn't always look at it from that perspective. I didn't look at it like, hey, I'm just need to steward over this thing so I can fulfill what God's called me to fulfill in this life. I didn't do that at all. It was a very self-centered approach. But if we don't come to the living God and allow him to establish us in our worth, value, and identity, how valuable are we? The living God thought we were worth dying for. Like, the price tag on every one of our lives was the living God literally thought it was worth sending his only begotten son, the most valuable possession in the world, for us. That's sobering to these, because I'm not worthy of it. I'm not deserving of it, but the Lord never changed his mind about us. And so no matter, like I said, where you're watching from, our desire is that you would know first and foremost that your life is of great significance, worth, and value in the eyes of God. But when it comes to just health, it's simply about stewardship. It's about honoring the gift that God's given us. It's a gift. Our health is a gift, no different than our relationships are and our finances are. And so it's imperative that we steward those. If we don't steward the gifts on our life, we lose those things. And I think there's so much information on the internet. There's so much, there's tons of knowledge out there. Just Google anything you want. There's tons of experts, quote unquote, experts in the field. But knowledge isn't what changes my life. Wisdom is what changes my wisdom. Wisdom rightly applies knowledge. It steers knowledge in the right direction. And we all need wisdom. And that's one of the things that God says, pray for wisdom. It's one of the things that I seek constantly is, Lord, give me a fresh revelation. Give me wisdom when it comes to how I can better steward the temple of God. But knowing that we are fearfully, wonderfully made, that God doesn't create junk. He created our bodies to work. But let's talk a little bit more, Doc, about just, this is the diabetes medication. It's something that really was designed, and I know a lot of people that have been on it for many, many years simply to control blood sugar levels. But if we approach it the wrong way, then what happens is we have insulin resistance, we have leptin resistance, it affects hormones, it creates havoc in the body. But that's what it was designed for. It was designed as a diabetes medication, but now it's kind of veered off for that, and it's become this huge weight loss medication. But it's going to create, just watch a year from now, watch 2 years from now, even watch what's happening right now, the side effects and the detriments from being on this drug long-term or even short-term. It's just not something that I want my family to have to suffer from, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you're right on. It's there's a branch of it, or a version of it, called Wegovy, and Wegovy is essentially the drug for weight loss specifically, versus, Ozempic was designed for diabetes. And so they have been able to market it that way. And then people have come in and said, well, I'm maybe not obese, but I'm overweight. And they did some off-label use of it, but now they've created, Novo Nordisk has been able to create a new drug called Wegovy, which is a version, like I said, doing the same mechanism. And it's going to have the same level of side effects. And the other thing, Dr. Pete, that that this, I was just on a call this morning with a mental health expert, and she's, she wanted some study into this, and she's helping people with their health and wellness. And I reminded her, and this is one thing she knows, is like 95% of your serotonin, like God created, again, the body's so brilliant. The greatest doctors inside, just fearfully and wonderfully made. 95% of our serotonin is your happy hormone. It's the fulfillment, it's the joy, it's the peace. That 95% of that comes from the gut. So when you take a drug like this, it has to, by definition, reduce that. So we don't even know. The longest study that we have is 68 weeks. They say this is for a lifetime. So 68 weeks is all that we've studied it for. So we think about all the longer term side effects, and we're already seeing suicidal tendencies and depression and anxiety go up with people on this drug. And it's not a mystery because of what we understand the gut health does to the brain. In other countries, most people don't know this. In other countries, they label Alzheimer's and dementia type 3 diabetes because that's what it is, meaning that the mechanisms that diabetes produces in the body, a side effect or a byproduct of having burned out insulin receptors over time, and an accumulation of glucose in the bloodstream actually creates dementia and Alzheimer's. So you mentioned that, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Dr. Pete, is, you're right. At the end of the day, what is this thing for? This vessel is to live out the purpose that he has for our life. But there's nothing to me that can take that away. When you take away somebody's mind, if you've been around somebody who has Alzheimer's, there's nothing just heartbreaking and sad in my spirit when I see that. Even like you take back to the old movie, The Notebook, it's like you see the body's there, but the mind isn't. From what I've read and what I see and what I research, that's not how God created this thing. And so we do realize that our decision making, and which is largely, I say, it's not your fault. We're getting these decisions made from other humans that say, hey, it's okay to do this. And we'll come in and say, no, God designed. Like, the cool part is when you do some things like intermittent fasting and whole food nutrition, and you start to move your body, these things actually do the same thing, the same mechanisms that Ozempic is doing, your body can do when you deploy what you said is the ability of an environment internally and externally for the body to adapt. And that's what God designed, is this brilliancy. But we're up against this big monster. And it really goes a lot of different ways, not just with your weight loss health, metabolic health, but even with your brain and your mind.
So I want to just mention, if you're watching today and you've been on Ozempic, you've been on Wegovy or one of these, and you're starting to notice some of these symptoms. These are some of the common symptoms. In fact, I saw an NBC News report, an ABC News report, a CBS News report, like you name it, everyone's talking about it right now. But these are some of the side effects that you might be facing: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, gas and bloating, stomach pain, fatigue, burping, facial changes, headaches, rebound weight gain, low blood glucose, vivid dreams, hair loss, pancreatitis, gallbladder disease, kidney damage, allergic reactions, thyroid tumors. In fact, the FDA warning on Ozempic right now potentially causes thyroid tumors, not something you want to mess with. Stomach paralysis, long-term effects. There's a lot of things going on. And so if you're dealing with those things, I just want to encourage you, there's a healthier way that you can approach it. And but to each is their own, like Mark Wahlberg said. But our desire is to simply empower you to begin to get healthy and stay healthy. But let's talk about, Doc, before we go, some of the ways that a person watching can actually, says, okay, I've heard it, I know the side effects, but what do I need to do? Like, guys, what do I need to do? Let me tell you this. When it comes to metabolism, like I said, I ask a lot of questions. I ask questions because I'm very simple. And so what is metabolism? You've talked about it already, the importance in regards to muscle and so forth. But metabolism is, like you said, the body's ability to convert, right, food, fuel, through the mitochondria of the cell, into energy, ATP, then metabolites for life, okay? So the efficiency of me consuming food, macronutrients, which are carbs, right, fats, proteins, micronutrients, which are vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. When I consume food, it goes through the mitochondria of the cell and it produces the energy to live. That whole process is called metabolism. Okay, so metabolism isn't, I have a good metabolism, that's why I'm skinny, or a bad metabolism, that's why I'm overweight. It's the efficiency of my body's ability to convert fuel into energy. And so analogy that kind of has helped me is if I go to the gas station, say Kroger, and I'm going to get gas, and I put the nastiest fuel in my engine, I'm still going to get from Tennessee to Minnesota and back multiple times, but it's at the expense of tons and tons of corrosion. Okay. So I'm going to get there. I'm going to feel no different than I used to have. Like, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you this, but back in the day when I first got into practice, when I didn't know how to eat well, when I didn't know how to take care of myself, I would go to what's called a Kiva juice, and Kiva juice had sherbet, right? Smoothie and a Red Bull. And so in the afternoon, that's literally what I consumed. And I had energy for the afternoon, but it's not paying attention to what I put into my engine, so to speak. But if I go now and I put a clean fuel into my engine, right? Not only do I get to Minnesota and back multiple times, but it's with less and less corrosion. Well, if I don't pay attention to the foods that I'm putting into my body, it's at the expense of tons and tons of corrosion. The difference is the corrosion that begins to accumulate in my body are what's called free radicals. Those are those nasty buggers that rot your cells and cause you to age, creating pain and inflammation and everything else. And so when my body converts food into energy, actually the byproduct of metabolism is free radicals. Now, when I don't pay attention to what I'm putting in my body, it creates tons and tons of free radicals, which is like sandpaper on the arterial walls of our heart that creates damage and inflammation. But if I start to pay attention to what I put in my body, I begin to realize that there's a fuel that I can put in my body, and there's good whole foods and things I can put in that allows my metabolism to become very, very efficient so that I don't have all the free radicals. Even when it comes to weight loss, our fat cells are actually organs of our body that are there to accumulate and protect our body from toxins and sugar and everything else. And so by simply paying attention to what I put in my body, helping my body do some natural things to detoxify the body, we can actually lose weight the right way simply because we're helping clear out the engine, so to speak, and just provide a simple way for us to kind of get on the road to a happy and healthy life. So let's talk about just some of those things that you recommend, Doc, when it comes to just losing weight the right way, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's high intensity interval training, whether it's detox and hydration, just some of the things that we might be second nature to us or to you, but not necessarily to other people.
Yeah, that's really good. You mentioned a few. I think about, I want to just acknowledge everybody that's listening to this because, Dr. Pete and I are no different than you. I mean, we recognize why this happens. A lot of times it's just it's an easier thing. And it's kind of when it's sold to you as like, well, it's kind of like, I've studied a lot. My wife and I my wife is we've had home births and Bradley birth instructors, doula and these things. And sometimes in the pregnancy world, it's like, well, if I just have a baby that comes out and it's laying on my lap or my chest that no matter how it got there, it was fine. And we believe that every baby is a blessing, but there's ways to get it there that have some consequences and others that don't. And so when you think about, if I lost weight, it isn't just losing weight. There's, I had somebody, I know this sounds a little bit extreme here, but everybody says somebody has a deadly disease and they lose a bunch of weight. Well, the objective wasn't to lose weight. We can't say lose weight's the objective. It's to be healthy and well. And so I also get it. Like you can't, you wouldn't have a good spousal relationship if you just did whatever you want and you got mean and you lashed out, but then you brought, roses every Friday. Like that wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be a good, it's like you can't make up for the time. It does require time. So we recognize this isn't always the easier path, but you're rewarded. You've done things in your life when you did the harder path and you're like, that feels good. That feels different. That feels right. That's what I believe God rewards us with. So when I think about, yes, intermittent fasting and what that can do for your hormone levels, leptin and ghrelin, and changing these hunger levels, I think the other thing is stop drinking calories. That you shouldn't get calories from your liquid. And so I think a lot of people, whether it be frappuccinos and these things, so I think there's some simple wins. I always like to look at lateral shifts. Let's not make huge bounds. Let's make lateral shifts. Let's just trade in some of the things you're doing right now, like vegetables and lean protein. This should be main staples, right? You mentioned free radicals, antioxidants, making sure fruits and vegetables. Start with berries, not so high level of sugar. But the key is more alive foods than dead. I used to do on a radio show. I was like, if it has DNA, if it once had DNA, it's probably good for you. Does a plant have DNA? Yeah. If Pop-Tarts don't have DNA, there's no
Yeah.
DNA. So you start to think about, well, and I know it seems logical, but that's where I start whole food nutrition, reducing carbs, refined carbohydrates, reducing sugar, as we all know, making lateral shifts. You can get things in a food that tastes the same, but they just have less chemicals and less toxicity. And then as far as moving your body, gaining, I think that one of the things that we're seeing in society is just losing weight or getting on cardio versus really building some muscle and increasing that metabolism. And it could be simple, just body weight exercises or bands that will really, really, and the big muscle groups like your buttock region and hip region and back region, those are the big, because those muscles will suck up that glucose, man. They're a sink for glucose. So you start to build those, that would be first and foremost. Intermittent fasting, moving the body, getting the heart rate up a little bit, high interval training you mentioned for those that are advanced, like get that heart rate up. Those hormones will come in place of it. Short little bursts is how our bodies were designed. So yeah, that's a little bit there. That be things that we do.
Just simple things too. And I tell everyone there's great grace. No matter where you are in this journey, maybe you're just have no idea even where to get started. I want you to know this. I'd rather be on death's door and get you moving in the right direction than to assume you're healthy, move in the wrong direction, because that's playing Russian roulette. And people come each week from all across the world to receive care with cancer and MS and Parkinson's and heart disease and all these different things. And we just literally just approach it one day at a time, one step at a time. And I have told people in the past, whether you have Skittles in your mouth and Twizzlers in your pocket, I don't really care. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm just here to help you get moving in the right direction. I'm not actually here to tell you what to do. I'm here to say, hey, let me empower you with information, and then let you and your family make a decision what feels good for you. And then I'll meet you there. And we will kind of go on this journey together, and I'll be an advocate for you as we get on the road to health. But I think if I can leave you with anything, it's stewardship. We know that we need to steward our relationships. If I don't take care of my wife and honor my relationship with my wife, and I come home one day and my bags are packed on the front steps, then I'm probably too late. If I don't pay my bills, and if I let the creditors come after me and then I try to react to it, then I'm too late. We know that we have to be good stewards. We have to be proactive with our finances, our health. But for some reason, when it comes to people's health, we take a reactive approach and think nothing of it. And my encouragement is, to begin to look at your health as a gift from God, that it's imperative that we begin to steward over so you can run and not grow weary and walk and not faint. And if we just begin to make simple steps and offer the Lord a few loaves of bread and some fish, so to speak, you'll be amazed at the returns that you get with just a little bit of effort. So, Doc, is there anything else that you just have on your heart that you'd like to share with those that are watching today?
Yeah, I would just piggyback off what you just said. I think that for me, moving things in the right direction is like, is Bible. I was at Bible study this morning, we're at Romans 8, and like when you start to study, for me, it's like when I start to study, I wish I just lived every day I need to. It's like being very aware of everything. I wasn't deserving, but it's there. He never started loving me, because that concept is like, he's never stopped loving me. He's never started loving me. He will always love me. And if I live in that, it helps me to be better, to make better decisions. And I think if you understand how brilliant your body was made, it just was, it is so resilient, but it also, there's these challenges, right? We talked about this recently, Ephesians 5:11, take no part in the fruitless deeds of evil, but instead expose them. And I know that one of my objectives and yours is expose that there is these challenges, and there is this evil, challenge out there, that if we're not aware of it, we'll get overtaken by it. And we'll think that, man, this doctor or this, and it's not the doctors. My two brothers are medical doctors. It's not an element. It's just that most don't know this. And so you're learning this, you don't know, you get to now take control. And it's places like you, Dr. P, and even conversations like this that help them say, wow, I can turn this thing around. You have all the option, no matter where you're at. You may be on 3 medications or 15. You have 4 diagnoses or conditions, but that's not who you are. And so you can change. Your gut can change in 3 days. Your gut, we learned this recently, your gut can change in 3 days. Your body can replace itself very quickly. You just start moving in the right direction. So it's an honor to be here and be able to
Absolutely, Doc. Thank you so much. Thank you, friends, for watching us today. Conversations with my good friend, Dr. Dan Sullivan. He's a brilliant mind, doing so many amazing things in healthcare, just really to advance the kingdom of God. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to this channel for more information just like this. But let's go on this journey together, the journey of a happy and healthy life.